The silence came first. You remember it instantly. A classroom full of shuffling feet and scratching pencils would suddenly freeze, all because one hand had gone up and one answer had missed the mark. In that moment, it felt as if every eye, every clock tick, every breath was aimed at you. Back then, a wrong answer wasn't just a mistake. It was an event. Today, children are encouraged to try, to guess, to explore. But in those classrooms of our past, hesitation carried weight. And that quiet pause after getting it wrong still lingers in memory, even now today. To understand why those moments felt so heavy, we have to step back into the classrooms themselves. Post-war Britain built its schools around order. Rooms were full, sometimes packed, with rows of desks facing forward and little space to wander or wonder. Lessons followed the clock, the bell, and the timetable, and everyone learned quickly that routine mattered. These schools mirrored the wider world outside the gates. Britain was rebuilding, tightening belts, valuing steadiness and respect above all else. Children were expected to listen carefully, sit neatly, and do as they were told. Asking questions was allowed, but only at the right moment, and usually with certainty. Getting things right mattered more than exploring how you got there. Comfort was not the priority. Fairness, consistency, and quiet control were teachers carried authority that was rarely questioned, and pupils absorbed that atmosphere daily. In such a setting, mistakes felt bigger than they really were. They seemed to interrupt the smooth running of things, drawing attention where none was wanted. And slowly, without anyone spelling it out, children learned that avoiding error was safer than standing out. That lesson followed many of us long after the school doors closed behind us forever. When getting it wrong meant standing out, it usually happened in the smallest moments. A spelling test read aloud, each word marching down the rows. A sum worked out on the board while 30 pairs of eyes followed the chalk. Reading aloud, voice wavering, hoping the page wouldn't trip you up. These were ordinary lessons, yet they carried a quiet tension. If the answer slipped, it wasn't private. It was shared, hanging in the air for everyone to notice. You felt taller somehow, not with pride but with exposure. Children learned this quickly. Some hands stopped going up, some voices grew quieter. It felt safer to blend into the wooden desks and exercise books than risk that sudden attention. Today, mistakes are softened, even welcomed, as part of learning. Back then, the lesson felt different. Accuracy was praised, hesitation remembered. And so many of us became careful thinkers, choosing silence over uncertainty long before we understood why. That habit lingered, shaping classrooms, workplaces, and conversations long after childhood ended quietly. Some rules were never written on the wall, yet everyone knew them. You learned how to sit without fidgeting, how to hold your pen just so, how to keep your eyes forward even when your mind wandered. You learned when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. Drawing attention to yourself felt risky, like stepping out of line in a place built on straight edges. Correction came quickly and publicly, so behavior became careful. Handwriting slowed, answers were double-checked in your head, and movements were measured. Confidence, for many, was quiet rather than bold. It wasn't about curiosity, it was about not slipping. Those habits didn't stay in the classroom. They followed people into offices, meetings, and family tables. Many adults learned to wait, to soften opinions, to be sure before speaking. Today, we encourage expression and individuality, but back then, blending in felt like success, and that invisible rule-book shaped lives just as surely as any lesson plan ever could, for generations who still recognize it today. Teachers occupied a special place then, standing at the front not just as guides, but as figures of certainty. Their word carried weight, and questioning it rarely crossed a pupil's mind. Authority wasn't harsh by design. It was simply accepted, part of the fabric of daily life. Within that atmosphere, a mistake could feel personal. Getting something wrong wasn't always seen as a step toward understanding, but as a sign you hadn't listened closely enough or tried hard enough. That idea settled quietly, shaping how children judged themselves. As those children grew older, the echo remained. In workplaces, people aimed to get things right the first time, speaking only when sure. At home, many parents passed on the same careful expectations, valuing neatness, respect, and restraint. Today, authority looks different, more flexible, more open to challenge. But back then, its shadow was long, and the lessons it taught stretched far beyond the classroom walls for many families across Britain. Then what did those classrooms really teach us about ourselves? Beyond sums and spelling, they left emotional fingerprints. Many learned resilience, a steady determination to carry on quietly and do their best. There was pride in getting things right, satisfaction in neat work completed without fuss. That strength mattered, and it stayed. But for some, something else lingered. A hesitation before speaking, a habit of apologizing for taking up space. Even now, decades later, mistakes can feel heavier than they should, as though an old classroom is still watching. Today, we talk openly about confidence and self-expression, encouraging people to try without fear. Looking back, it's striking how much of our adult voice was shaped in childhood silence. Understanding that doesn't diminish the past. It simply helps us see ourselves more clearly with kindness. Recognizing both the toughness we gained and the gentleness we were never taught to show ourselves, walk into a classroom today and the atmosphere feels different. Children are urged to try, to question, to learn through error rather than avoid it. The silence after a wrong answer has softened into conversation. Back then, fear shaped us, and in many ways, it strengthened us. It taught patience, effort, and respect. But it also carried a weight we didn't always notice at the time. Looking back now, we can honor what that world gave us, while feeling quietly grateful that today's children grow in rooms where mistakes are simply part of the journey. For more of these unbelievable memories, tap the video on your screen. The 1970s stories are something else. Don't forget to subscribe.